Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Art 192, digital imaging slash Photoshop, or you can also say it's Photoshop slash digital imaging for the fall semester 2021. Today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue with lesson 8, which covers the vector components of Photoshop. In this particular instance, we're going to use it to make a selection, a path tool, pen tool, to make a selection of the central orange that they have provided for us, turn that into a selection and turn it into a lemon. That's what we have over to the left. In addition to that, they also have, if we look at shape layers or shape objects rather, and we look over here to the left, we have rectangles, ellipses, triangles, polygons. I want to focus on the custom shape tool. They provide for us a number of different pre-made flowers, boats, wild animals, leaf trees. How they chose those, I do not know. I think the ones that they used to provide in earlier versions were a little bit more significant and helpful, but anyway, that's what they've done. And more importantly, they're, I'll show you how to use them. They're quite easy, but I also want to show you how to create your own shape layer, your own custom little shape. So that won't take us that long today. And then what I want to do after that is talk about our next assignment, the poster assignment. Will be a movie poster, and that will be considered your midterm assignment that we'll be doing a little over 3 weeks. I've already posted it in Canvas, the due date. I think I made it October the 20th. Anyway, and then we have 2 more assignments after that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with this. I'm going to go ahead and hide the finished version here so that I can enlarge the window a little bit. So I'm going to go to Range, and I'm going to go back to Consolidate All into Tabs, and that's what I want to see here. I like looking at this, fairly large. So to do this, you need to make sure that you have the background layer selected. You'll notice that they provided an additional layer for us as a guide as to where to place the anchor points and to click and drag for the curved handles. It's a good idea once you've completed this, if you haven't used the pen tool before, to try it yourself without the template that they provided or the guide on top. I'll start with it, show you, because I think they've made too many anchor points to my taste, but that's just, my personal thing. Actually, I know in Illustrator, when you're working with the pen tool, it's really a good practice to use as few anchor points as you absolutely need to. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the pen tool. And I want to make sure that it's selected to path, not shape. Okay. So to do that, we'll start at point A. And I think I remember telling you that I don't like looking at that little pen nib. So if I put caps lock on, I see a crosshair. So what I want to do is I want to click for the first point, click to the second point, and then drag to this little hollow. You'll see that it follows pretty closely the underlying shape. I'm going to do the next, and I'm going to go to point C, and I'm going to click and drag until it matches underneath. Then I release the mouse. I don't know if I stated that, but you then go to the next point and you click and you drag. Notice that it's off a little bit, so I don't know that theirs was that accurate, but I'll fix it in a minute. Now I release the mouse and I click and drag again until it matches the underlying path. And I click and drag like so. And then when I go to point G, I just click. And that turns that curved path into a corner, or a curved anchor point into a corner one with a sharp angle. Now I can go to point H and I can click and drag. And actually I don't have to drag quite as far as what they've done to create the underlying path. And now I'll go to I and drag. It really is more helpful, I think, if rather than you can start with their anchor points, but then use the underlying shape as your guide. Now I click and I click, and now I go back up and I click and I drag until it matches that underlying path. And I click and I drag until it matches the underlying path. And then I click and I drag until it matches the underlying path. And notice that mine aren't matching up, and that's okay. Now I can go to the very end, and when you do go to the end is where you started. And you'll notice that it goes from the little crosshairs back to a pen nib, and there's a little circle in the lower right-hand corner. That means it's now a closed path. So now what I can do, I think it would be helpful if I turned off that path guide. And I want to look and see how accurate my path is. And you'll notice up here that it just doesn't quite fit. So I'm going to take, and anytime you want to edit any parts of these, you go from the pen to, if you want to move the entire path, select that tool. That's the path selection tool. And I can click and I can move it anywhere. If I just want to move individual anchor points and the curve handles, then I go to underneath, I go to the direct selection tool. I click off of it and I click again to select that specific anchor point that I want to affect. What I can do is I'll take this one here and I'm going to pull it in a little bit, because if you pull it out, notice how it really stretches that Bezier curve. And when I pull it in, it makes the shape, or it aligns a little bit more to the one underneath. And I click and I drag and I pull that in a little bit, and that, and otherwise everything looks pretty good. But normally that's what I do. I'll go all the way around the horn, so to speak, and make sure that my path is pretty accurate. Now I can go back to the path selection tool just to make sure that the entire path is selected. And what I want to do now is I'm going to switch from layers to paths. And what I want to do under here is I want to select the third one over. And what I want to do is I want to take and load path as a selection. The path will remain intact, but now what I have is a selection. And now I can go back to the layers panel, and with the background intact, I can go ahead and I can create an adjustment layer mask. So with adjustments selected, I'm going to select hue saturation, which is the second row, the first one over, select it. And you'll notice that it turned that into a mask. Now I can take the hue, and this is really nice because it is non-destructive. And I can turn that orange into a lemon just by adjusting the hue on that. And you can see that the selection is pretty accurate. Pen tools are used where they're very often where there are compound curves and where the color and tonal distinctions or separations aren't that great. So maybe the other tools that you would normally use don't work that well. The quick selection tool or the other one that we have up here, the object selection tool, You can try it and it wouldn't hurt. I can go ahead and I can turn that off. Select the background layer again, and let's try it just to see what happens. I'm going to select the quick selection tool, and I'm going to click and drag in here and see what happens. And that's actually not bad. We need to add a little bit up here. Notice the tone is going to be, and the colors are almost indistinguishable from one to the other, but it's actually working pretty well. And I'm holding down the Shift key to add. And that's not half bad. You want it to be pretty accurate. And so if you want, I mean, I can always go back with the lasso tool, and I can remove some of these by holding down the Option key and click and drag like so. Notice that that dips in a little bit, but that's not a bad selection either. So I don't know that their example works best, but it works pretty well. Okay, it works just to show you the fundamentals of working with paths. Paths you won't use very often in Photoshop, but that's pretty much all you'll use if you're in Adobe Illustrator. So the next thing that we want to do, as I said, I want to show you how to use the shape layers. So we come down here, and right now, if you wanted to create a rectangle, for example, I could go ahead and I'm going to select the top layer that I have here and click and drag. And notice that this is set to shape. If it were set to path, it would be just that, an open path. So I'm going to go, but while it's selected to shape, it's like type, it automatically creates its own layer. And that layer can change. We can go from a fill to no fill. And if I want to, select color in here and change the fill to black, I can. So these are editable, infinitely editable. If I want to go ahead and I want to select a stroke for this, I could select, for example, a green stroke. And I could come up here, or I could come over here and I can change the width of it. Like so. And what's nice about this is if you need 2D flat graphic elements on your page and you don't want to have to worry about the resolution of the image, then this would be the way to go. So that's that. They have all the different shapes from which to choose. I'll throw that away. And as I said, if you want to make a simple rectangle, and we did this the first day of class or one of the first days of class, I can come back up here and select the rectangle again, or instead, let's go ahead and select polygon. And instead of shape, if I select path and I click and I drag like so, and I release, notice that it will become a path. That's what I have over here, a working path. And again, if I want to turn that path into a selection, I could do so. Pretty simple. Deselect. So what I'm going to focus on now is the custom shape layer. So I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to look at flowers. And if I recall, it is the last one that they have here. This one down here. So to use it, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make sure that we have the correct fill. I think it's the orange, I don't know. And I can click and drag to pull that out. Now, if you don't hold down the Shift key, notice it will stretch and it will elongate and do whatever you want. If you hold down the Shift key, it constrains the proportions. So right now, if I look at this and I look over here, we can see that this has a green fill and it has no stroke. So let me deselect that. I selected path. You know what? I goofed. So to do that, I need to undo. That's what I was talking about. I need to select shape instead. There we go. Now, I don't want a green fill, but I'll use it just as an example. Hold down the Shift key, click and drag, and there you go. And then at a later time, if you want to change the colors, just double click on the layer itself, and we can pick another one, or I can come back over here and we can use maybe the light, an orange color from here, and we're set to go, and it behaves like any other layer. We can adjust the opacity. We can continue to adjust the size using Command T for transform, and you're set. Now, a few other things that they have done in this lesson that I don't find to be that important, and I'm not going to demonstrate for you, is that, for example, under effects, if you want, you can add a drop shadow. And you can add multiple drop shadows, and you can control those. And that's the same for the text over there. The default setting is a really hard edge. What they wanted to do is to change the distance of it, and they wanted to change the spread of it a little bit, and they wanted to change the size, so it became really soft. And then we can change the opacity if we want, and turn that down. And that's the desired effect, so it kind of stands out from the background. Okay, so that's all there is to that for the remainder of this lesson. But what I do want to talk about, as I said, is to create your own custom shape layer. So to do so, let's work with the pen tool, and I'm just going to create some gibberish here. I'm going to make sure that it's set to path. And let's go ahead and I'm going to click, and I'm going to create kind of a faux little star shape. Now it's filling the path, and that's not what I wanted. I don't know why it's filling the path. Oh, because it's on that other shape layer. That's why. So let me delete it. I want to delete that operation. There we go. So I need to select the background layer. My mistake. Let's go back with the pen and the path, because all that did was add that shape to the existing flower shape layer. Again, make sure that it's set to path. Click, 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 making kind of a little cowboy star here. Not a very good one, I might add, but you get the idea. Okay, so I have my path, and if I look at paths, I can see that it is the working path. And if I turn it off, and I go back, there it is. So with the working path selected, I can now go to Edit. And I can come down and I can say, I want to define brush preset. Okay, and I will name it Star. So let's name it Star. I hope I got this right. And we'll see what I have here. So let's deselect. Let's go back to layers, and let's go back to our shape or custom shapes over here. And let's look underneath and see if I have it under, oh, there we go. I didn't make it. So I don't know why it didn't make it, but it didn't make it. Let me close that path. I made this other one, and I'm not quite so sure why. And so this is my test shape. So now when I click and I drag over here, let me go ahead and select this layer down here and click and drag, hold down the Shift key, and that has a green stroke. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, and I'll just select none. I'm going to show you the fill. I'll make it a green fill, just so you can see that I created my own. So let me see. I don't know why that didn't work. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select the bottom down here again, layer 8. Let's go ahead and select this test shape, and I'm going to move it real quick. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. There we go. I keep selecting the wrong thing here. I'm going to go ahead and take this one, and I'm going to lock it just so I don't accidentally move something else. So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to lock that shape, come down here, and let's move it. There we go. Just move it out of position here. Select the background again. Let me try one more time. Let me go to paths. Let's see what there's that working path. Okay, make sure that it is selected. I'm going to make sure and go to File, and I'm going to select Edit. Come on, come on, come on. There we go. Let's go ahead and I don't want to transform. I want to define pattern preset. I want to name it. No, I don't want that. So why is it giving me fits here? Okay. Let me try something different then, because this is what I did earlier. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn that path shape off. And let's work with a shape layer instead. But that doesn't make sense. Well, let's go ahead and do it anyway. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the pen tool. I'm going to switch from path to shape. And I'm going to go ahead and make another one again, another little star shape. And if I goof up, I goof up. And that's the way it goes. And I'll tackle it on another day. But I had it working really nicely. So let me go ahead and switch again. I'm going to make sure that the fill is done, or the stroke is done, and I'm going to make sure the green fill is like so. And now I can take that shape. Let me go back to paths. There's the second one. It's our shape layer. And let me try again. Let me go back to edit. And you can see I don't do this that often. And let's go ahead and let's define brush preset. And that's not what I wanted. I want it to be star. Let's see if it shows up this time. So if I come down to my custom shapes, go down here. Nope, it didn't show up. So I'm not doing something right, obviously. Let's go back to layers. Let's select test shape 2. No. There's shape 2. Let's go back here and move it. There we go. So with it selected, let's try again. One more time and then I'm done. You can tell it's not that critical, but it is kind of nice if you wanted to bring in a logo for a client or yourself and something that you use frequently, you want to create it into your own custom layer. I've just done this before class, so I don't know why it's not working here. And it's not going to work again. It's not working. So I don't know why. I don't know why. There you have it. I'll go ahead and I'll turn those guys off. So we go back to really the focus on the lesson itself. Okie doke. So that's pretty much it for today, but I do want to start talking about poster design. So what I have done for all of you is I have a variety of things that we can discuss here. I can go over to, let's see, I want to make sure that I had them all laid out earlier here. So where did they go? Let me go to the end here. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to come down here. And I want to select my Pinterest shapes. So to talk about some of my favorite movie posters, and this really does date me. To give you an idea of the basic concept for the next assignment. You're to do a movie poster, 11 by 17, vertical format, that is based on the story of your life. Now, movie posters or posters in general are made to tell a story. And if you think of them as, movie posters themselves, that what they do is that they take in one single frame, they distill everything, all those thousands of frames that were generated in the movie itself, and they're distilled down into a single frame to tell the entire movie. Now, the better ones, I think, are the ones that use kind of a single image as opposed to a collage or montage. Now, if you're interested in using a montage, I have a couple of examples for you that work really well. The movie poster that's about your life is that you do not have to use an image of yourself, and you don't need to use really anything about your life. I mean, it has to be about your life, but it doesn't have to include, hold on here. Where did it go? Let me go back to, there we go. You can use a metaphor for your life is what I'm trying to say. Let me just go ahead, and I'm losing track of all the tabs that I have and that sort of thing. So I'm just going to select a brand new one here. And I'm going to go to Kmart 66. There we go. And I want to start by looking at, under Kirk classes, the samples that I have here for you. I can zoom in a little bit. And if I go to, let's start with this one right here. So the first example that I showed you, he did choose to use an image of himself. Isaac de la Cruz was in a band, or is in a band, and he chose to pick an image that someone took of him while he was performing and use that as the core image of his poster. Now, I find some of the better movie posters are reduced to single images or a single key image. He chose to put the title at the top. He chose a slightly kind of bold, but kind of a little bit slightly grungy look. He also included the credits. I want you to include credits on another day. On Wednesday, I will show you where to get credits. They don't have to pertain to your movie. They just have to be placeholders to show, what it would look like with credits. He chose to use kind of a posterized look of himself, really use extreme coloring and lighting to drive the point home that his music is sort of extreme and kind of edgy. So I think that this one, worked really well. The next one was by Oscar Bojaca, and it was about his family. That's what he wanted to focus on. He did not use images of himself. He used images that he found on the internet. You'll notice that he too used his name at the top, used is the key, person, the primary person of the film. He has what lies within. Another important aspect of this design is the title design. I thought he did really a beautiful job in designing the title. That was one of the things that really drew me to this. Also notice that he used a silhouette of the image of the person that he used to represent himself. And then within that, he put an image, which was supposed to be kind of a metaphor for his, or a substitute for his wife, and a silhouette of the family and a background image of in the city. And then he, reduced the credits down to the bottom. Again, really nice, kind of a collage, but developed in kind of a hierarchical fashion that I'll talk about this more later on another day. Richard was one of my star students a few years back. He already had a degree from Cal State Long Beach in fine art. And so he was able to draw and paint really well. He chose to pick something about himself. He was a very kind of shy, introverted person. So that's where the focus of the image is, rather than put the title at the top. Notice that you can put the title in other locations. He chose to put it, below. He still included the credits down here. So he faded out the image of the crowd and put his image in there to fit really nicely of the title of the movie. Again, excellent job. This one is not a movie poster, but it's an excellent example of a poster. Were those the only posters that I had? They are. I apologize. That's it. So let me go ahead and bring that back here. Let's go back. I'm going to pause the recording for just a second to get to where I need to be. So in my, this is something that you guys might consider doing, is if you don't have a Pinterest account or something like that, to create one. And so I put, when I looked up movie posters, some of the ones that I thought were really extraordinary. Back in the day, my favorites that were the ones that were illustrated. So if we look at this one, for example, from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay, this is a really good example of one that is a montage, but notice that the focus is on Indy. Okay, with all the other subsequent characters, or the tertiary characters, secondary and tertiary characters, following this symbol behind him that are, significantly smaller. It's really an excellent example of title design that kind of harkens back to the 30s and 40s, where in movies where they would do serials, that would be, every week they would, or every couple of weeks or every month, they would come up with a new version. There are some other really excellent examples down here too that you can look at in here. But again, that was one of my favorites. John Alvin did some. In addition to John Alvin, Drew Struzan was probably one of my favorites, who did a bunch of these. Same with the Star Wars. This one is not my favorite, but it's the one that I think most people remember. The one that is my favorite is the one down here. Okay, this was truly the first that was done. I'm not really keen on having the credits separated and below. I prefer when they're integrated within the image itself. And so, that's something that they could have easily done. Notice here that they use kind of a traditional stable that mirrors the logo or the title itself. They use a very stable kind of pyramid shape. They have Luke Skywalker, and they have Leia, and then they have R2-D2 and C-3PO that really are the lightest and the brightest and have the greatest contrast. And they really become the focus of the illustration. In addition to that, Darth Vader is also important. He's the largest element, but because he very closely blends with the background, and the contrast and the values is less than what you see in the front, it's a second read. And they do add additional elements back here, the B-Wing fighters and Death Star and that sort of thing. So there's a lot going on here, but there is a definite hierarchy that was developed. in reading the poster from first, second, third reads, and notice that they go, and it goes in kind of a clockwise fashion. That the direction of the B-wing fighters, after you've looked at these characters here, bring it right up and over to the Death Star, and then you see Darth Vader, and then it brings you back to them again. So it's kind of a cyclical, circular kind of mode. When you're creating more complex compositions like that, it's important, I think, especially for movie posters that have to be read very quickly, that you develop a strong hierarchy rather than something that's a little bit more chaotic and happenstance. The ones that I don't like as much, but I still think are done really well, would be, for example, the one for the Green Mile. It's just a beautiful illustration, but you can see that it focuses on Tom Hanks as the principal character, and just beautifully illustrated. And it's kind of sucked in by the stylized version of him and the warm tones and the very simple basic format for movies. You can check some of the older ones. I think the older ones for like Sunset Boulevard would be kind of cool. Okay, so that's something to look at. All you have to do to find all of these and more, much more, are simply do a Google search. And when you do the Google search, type in award-winning movie posters, and tons of them will pop up. Some really are really good, some are not. I thought this one was really extraordinary. Boyhood by Linklater, which took place over a span of, I forget how many years. And so you see this tear down the middle, and you see the boy, and then him is a much older young adult. They brought the two together really beautifully. It really tells the story in a nutshell, in a single frame. Really, really nice. Another one that's one of my favorites too is E.T. And again, not this one. It's a good one, but it's not my favorite. This one, I think, is my favorite here. Okay, very simple. The boy with E.T., when E.T., and he's riding his bicycle and they're trying to escape. And you have in this particular instance, they use the moon to silhouette them. We have a very basic kind of landscape that kind of frames everything. And again, notice the title design, E.T., kind of a very loose kind of brushwork, very simple, and then the credits at the bottom. Really, really very nice, beautifully done. Simple to the point. Let me back up again. Let's look at a few others, and I plan on looking at some more of these on Wednesday. That's pretty much all we're going to do is on Wednesday is talk about movie poster design. Chariots of Fire was really exquisite. It's not a centered design. It is a singular image of the men practicing for the Olympics, the English men practicing for the Olympics, and using really extreme foreground, kind of blurred and simplified with some basic text here, and Chariots of Fire centered, but to the right, and then the same with the credits, reversed out like the title and to the right. Really exquisite, very simple, elegant design. Those are kind of my preferred taste in designs. I mean, I like complicated ones, but if they're done well. I thought this was nice. Tales of the Hood 3. Okay. Again, it's it borders on being a collage, a montage, but it's really principally a single image with a second one set back. Okay, so you have this juxtaposition of foreground, background here, looking at the two images. And then we have the title at the top. Works really well, really, really nice. It's almost a black and white. So that would be another thing for your movie poster. If color is your thing and it really suits the subject of your movie poster, or what you want, the mood or the theme that you want to convey, then by all means. If you want to revert to a black and white or something that's more monochromatic, if you want something posterized, you are welcome to do so. This, I thought, for Saving Private Ryan was exquisite. Again, very simple, elegant, to the point, with a soldier and silhouette with the large looming clouds in the background. And again, the title, and very simple, but notice how Saving is in bold and Private Ryan. They're all lowercase, but much lighter typeface. And they've included here, it's starring Tom Hanks, and we have the credits below. They're really understated. Okay, so look before you leap. Look at lots of movie posters for your ideas. Begin collecting this week, this weekend, collecting images that you think you might use for your personal movie poster. I thought Empire of the Sun was exquisite too. Again, I like the simple, but this one is centered. Again, I think more than anything, I really like the title of the design. Notice that they reduce the prepositions of in the article, but they really tighten everything up to make it look like a single unit. Empire of the Sun. Really very nice. So do some homework. You should be finishing up your postcard or your, excuse me, your selfie photo bomb. Those of you who have turned yours in, I believe I got them all. I may have missed some. I graded some that have been turned in. And that will be it for today. Okay. So that's to get you started with the next assignment that is your midterm. Okay, do you have any questions for me today before we end today's demonstration, lecture, webinar, whatever you want to call it? No questions? No? Okie doke. Well, then that's it for today. You guys are free to leave. Well, if you guys haven't turned in your first assignment, I look forward to seeing it. And I will leave comments and Canvas, a few comments where I think the strengths and the weaknesses of your posters are, or your postcards are. And that will be it. Okay. So I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the recording, and this will be posted very shortly on my YouTube channel.